Fire, 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 fire.
Uh-oh, the OnlyFans empire is collapsing. Uh-oh, stinky.
Currently, the media space has been dominated by how much some top earners are making on OnlyFans, but what hasn't really been discussed is how the company has lost billions of dollars in valuation in a very short amount of time. And things just got even more messy because is now in a very bad situation after the CEO passed away. So essentially, you have one of the
he died of cancer, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
biggest platforms in the world,
Nobody even knew
especially
about
when it
it.
comes to that profitability per employee metric that you've probably seen online. And they just lost the one person running it, and almost nobody knew who he really was and that he existed. So the dude never gave interviews. There's really no real footage of him online. And one of the only pictures of him online was the one from his LinkedIn that had no ties to the platform whatsoever. So
that's smart. You know, all the people that own the porn sites, they do the same thing as well. Did you know that? Yeah.
that's a little bit
He's
interesting.
Ukrainian?
But for years,
I think I read somewhere that he moved there like a long time ago.
he was quietly making billions running one of the most controversial platforms on the internet. But then, in just the last month, he passed away and left the entire business in limbo. So, I mean, to catch everyone up to speed here, OF was created in 2016 by a guy named Tim Stokely. He was the youngest kid in a family from Essex, England. And he spent years trying to launch internet business after internet business and had a whole lot of failures. And the guy burned through a whole bunch of his own money and goodwill from friends and family, to put it lightly. But his dad, Guy, real name by the way, he watched multiple projects go essentially nowhere and had funded more than a few of them. So when Tim came back with yet another idea, he went, okay.
Dad, I just need a couple $10,000. By the way, people are so fucking weird. People call me a Nepo baby, bro. This is Nepo baby, just a small loan of 10,000 pounds.
Here's 10,000 pounds, and that's the last one I'm funding. Little did he know, though.
Nobody knew he had, but weirdly started giving a lot of money towards cancer research a few years before the public learned about his cancer. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. I'm not gonna shit talk the guy, even though he made OF, and I think OF is a terrible platform. I don't think he deserved to die. Like, I'm not gonna be that person. I'd be a fucking hypocrite. I have family with cancer, bro. Like, it sucks.
That money became
he
the
might have
seed
had a
funds.
change of heart. He was like, all
and
right,
the original
time to
structure was
donate.
simple. Creators set a monthly price, subscribers paid it, and the platform keeps 20%. And I guess the creator walks away with 80%. Tim's original pitch wasn't necessarily focused on adult content, but the idea had been open to anyone who could build a paying audience. And
yeah, OnlyFans originally wasn't even for boobies and hoo-ha pictures, chat. I know, this is mind-blowing. Yeah, it was literally supposed to be for fan content,
including adult creators since 2017. And from the start, it was a family operation in the early days, with Tim's brother, Tom, running the operations and their father, Guy, handling the finances. Guy, I guess, was just their guy and father. And that one group, I guess they figured out the model faster than anyone else. And that showed up in some serious numbers because in 2018, the platform was gaining traction, but running headfirst into some structural problems. The payment processors that made it possible to, you know, actually collect the money from the subscribers weren't a big fan of the adult side of their business. And obviously,
Patreon doesn't like it either. They pretty much ban you immediately, I'm pretty sure. If they, excuse me, if they find out.
you know, no payment processing means no business. Full stop. So Tim sold it. And the buyer was someone that almost nobody had heard of, and nobody would really hear of him for many years to come. His name was Leonid Radvinsky, who was born in Odessa, Ukraine in 1982. His family relocated to Chicago while he was still a kid, and he studied economics at Northwestern University and graduated in 2002. And from that point forward, he essentially built an entire career at, you know, scaling internet companies while keeping his name almost.
That's crazy. And then he found a gold mine finally, and it was like, all right, time to retire. And nobody knows who I am. He could be fucking playing like Fortnite 24/7 for all we know.
Completely out of circulation.
Absolutely
and even after he became the owner of one of the most talked about platforms on the planet, a single photo of him made the rounds, the same one over and over, which was attached to a LinkedIn profile that described him as the president at leo.com, and, you know, completely left OF out of the picture. So essentially what we know about this guy is he lived in a $19 million waterfront property in Miami.
Holy shit.
But he gave 0 interviews. He made no public statements. He was, I guess, for every practical purpose, someone who did not want to be found. What he was always doing, however, was running his own things, and he'd been building internet businesses since he was a teenager. And by his mid-20s, he'd built and operated more than 10 websites, developing a deep understanding in, I guess, the mechanics of adult content or entertainment, and how that whole payment structure works, and how he can
how much you can get away with paying per goon per hour.
Get that to work without getting banned. And since he understood how this industry worked, when he was presented with the chance to buy, he did so in 2018 for $30 million. And it's safe to say that was a phenomenal investment for him, because in 2019, the platform processed around $300 million in total payments and cleared around $7 million in profit. Then a year later, that gross payment volume hit $2.2 billion. Then by 2021, it was approaching $5 billion. And none of these numbers were being announced, but the company files with the UK as required. But Leonid had no interest in turning any of these numbers into some massive press release like many other entrepreneurs would. But then came that moment that probably told you more about OF than anything else, because in August of 2021, the platform announced that it was going to ban explicit content. Now that was
but then they didn't.
Confusing to a lot of people, because that kind of sounds like if Burger King announced it was going to stop selling burgers. So why would they ever do that? Well, it makes sense a little bit later on when you get the full picture. But obviously, the response from the creators on their platform was immediate and very clear. So 6 days later, the ban was reversed, and I guess that just showed the...
But they won't reverse the ban on PayPal for Japanese products that are not safe for work. Isn't that just strange to you guys? Yeah, I find that so fucking weird. Like, they made a big fucking deal about, like, you know, that kind of content from Japanese websites, but it's okay for Onlyfans. They reversed it within 6 days. Insane.
Creators that they're the product. They actually have the power here of this platform. Because at the end of the day, the platform cannot exist without the creators and the consumers paying for it. Yeah. So the reason all this actually matters becomes a whole lot more clear once you look at the numbers, though. Because in 2024, they processed $7.2 billion in total transactions between the fans.
Dude, you went from 270 million to 7.22 billion. Oh my God.
And the creators. OF's cut of that was about 20%.
Dude,
and that came out to $1.41 billion in net revenue. That is a behemoth of a company. But after expenses, pre-tax profit landed at $684 million, with the entire operation ran by only 46 full-time employees. That is insane. And then Leonid's personal payouts track the platform's growth as you would pretty much expect, because in 2021, he collected around $284 million. In 2022, he collected $338 million.
Holy
in 2023,
shit.
he collected $472
Dude, it just keeps going up,
and then
man.
in 2024, he collected $701 million, which works out to about $2 million per day every day for the entire year, which means the total earnings pulled between 2021 and 2024 were just under $1.8 billion from a company that he paid roughly $30 million for. That might be one of the best investments of all time.
Yeah,
but at the same time, the distribution between the creators is wildly uneven, because, you know, you have this whole notion where a bunch of people would start an OF and make a whole bunch of money. But for the most part, that's not true. It's very similar to how Twitch is in a way. I don't really like drawing comparisons between Twitch and but you know,
I mean,
you have a handful of top streamers on Twitch that make a crazy amount of money.
Yeah.
And then the average streamer makes way below minimum wage. And that's
it's extremely difficult to break into, like, oh, I'm gonna quit my actual job and do streaming full time. That's like a very privileged thing.
Case with as well. But I mean, that's just a whole nother topic for its own. But the thing is, by 2025, Leonid was looking for a buyer. And it didn't take long for him to realize, selling this platform is going to be a challenge. Because on paper, I mean, the investment is insane. Over $1.4 billion in annual net revenue, profit margins that most businesses would consider borderline unbelievable, roughly 380 million registered users, and fewer than 50 people on payroll. If you strip the context and handed someone the financial statements, they would assume they were looking at some sort of tech unicorn that had figured out everything. However, the context is the biggest problem here, because a large portion of the institutional investors, you know, the ones with the actual capital to do a deal at this scale, they operate under something called vice clauses, which are restrictions embedded in their agreements with their own backers that prevent them from putting money into certain categories. Because often, I mean, these firms don't only use their own money, they have liquidity providers or people who invest money into them, and they operate as a hedge fund, and then they deploy other people's money with the end goal of, you know, beating the S&P 500 in an annual return. And a lot of people just don't want their funds to go into, you know, investing in these vice businesses, which considers adult content, tobacco, gambling, and weapons. So regardless of the numbers, a lot of the most obvious buyers are essentially blocked from even writing the check. Then you have the operational risks, which are, you know, Visa and MasterCard. They've already shown that they could, you know, threaten to cut off payment processing.
But they saw like how much money they could get, so we're like, maybe this isn't so bad
for adult platforms. And this is exactly what pushed OF towards its failed 2021 ban. And since the platform is almost entirely reliant on subscription revenue, it has to go through payment processors that take somewhere between 5 to 10% in fees on top of the 2 to 3% fees from the most regular, you know, Visa and Master, which is far above the usual 2 to 3% that most regular businesses are charged from payment processors. So obviously that is a tax on their margins, and now they're dependent to payment processors. And not only that, but there's also a regulatory pressure. So the UK communications regulator, they hit with a £1.4 million fine in early 2025.
That's nothing. That literally is pennies compared to their income. Are you serious?
For a weak
That's it? 1.4 million?
age verification practice, which, you know, might not be the biggest deal for them financially, but it's a pretty clear sign of where this enforcement is going. And then you have that exit problem, because even if someone bought it, how do they eventually sell it? Like, taking it public through a stock market listing, that's essentially impossible under the current conditions. And there's also no obvious second buyer standing by, and the insane financials don't resolve the fact that this is an asset most people in finance don't really want to be publicly associated with. And I mean, if I was to guess, that might be one of the reasons why they tried to stop allowing adult content on their platform back in, 2021, plus the whole payment processors problem. So the asking price of the platform started at about $8 billion, and no one was interested, despite their insanely high valuation.
Yeah.
But the firm that eventually...
The company's worth $8 billion. It's generating $8 billion, and they get a $1 million fine. That's crazy.
Emerged as, I guess, the most serious buyer was Architect Capital, a San Francisco-based investment fund that got its start in 2020, providing credit to Latin American startups. And they had more recently become known for its tendency towards complicated situations, because its founder, James Sagan, was one of the larger investors in Juul, a, vaping and nicotine product that you guys are probably familiar with at this point. And honestly, that's just a whole nother video, because Juul completely took over the world like right before the pandemic, and it definitely did extremely well during the pandemic. And then
because everybody was at home, and honestly, I would argue that one of the most fucked up thoughts you could have is that people were supposed to stay inside and they couldn't see their girlfriends even if they had them. And then, like, do you think there's like people that goon to OF girls just because they couldn't see their girlfriends in real life? Like, they pissed that away? Yeah. And then it vanished? Yep.
And it seems like it kind of got like banned. At least most of their flavors got banned. And then suddenly you had like Geek Bars and all these other like off-brand versions of
I haven't heard that in years.
Juul, which arguably are worse, that kind of took over everything. But yeah, long story, but essentially Juul had
nobody who pays for porn has a girlfriend. Oh, I don't know. I think there's a lot of porn addicts that have girlfriends. Chat, I don't know what to tell you. I think that it's an addiction at that point. Lakari. I was about to say that, but I didn't want to. Yeah, and he had hot looking girlfriends, and he had attention, he had clout, but he didn't care. He has an addiction. I hope he's getting better.
products pulled by the shelves by the FDA, and they later
Fucking weirdo,
settled
but I hope
more
it's
than $1
better.
billion in lawsuits over allegations that it was being marketed towards teenagers. So I mean,
Why
it's
pay when it's free in a lot of places? Ask that to the new CEO of Onlyfans. Why do people pay for stuff that they can have for free? I don't know.
safe to say that Architect's brand has some tolerance for risky investments. And the pitch SmugAlana made to the potential backers had two core
SmugAlana.
ideas. First, diversify the platform, push it towards mainstream creator niches, and try to make it competitive with
Yeah, there's a lot of cosplayers that do kind of like not lewd but not safe for work cosplays, but you can't see their coochie or their boobies or like it's like the suggestion. Yeah, there's a lot of those.
something like Patreon rather than positioning it as purely an adult content site. Obviously, OF is primarily an adult content platform,
worked,
and the
too.
majority of the traffic and subscriptions and the money all comes from that. And without that core, it would just be a minor player when it comes to, like, you know, competing in the space with YouTube, Patreon, and Spotify. And now that Spotify also added long form content and subscription models. But I feel like it might even be smaller than Rumble if they tried to play in the non-adult space. Also, fun fact, since I'm mentioning Spotify, I was kind of forced to make a Spotify because some dude kept stealing my content and re-uploading it to Spotify. So
And they just got away with that shit. They probably took the money and ran after they got fucking reported, dude. That is so scummy.
if you want to enjoy my content on Spotify, you can do that as well. I'll leave a link down below so you guys know
That's crazy.
that it's actually me and not the dude impersonating me. So if you want to leave a review there, that would also help me not get impersonated. But continuing the video, over the years, OF has genuinely been trying to build a safe for work community on the platform, including chefs, athletes, musicians, comedians, and fitness coaches. And they also launched their own safe for work streaming service called OFTV back in 2021. And they've actively been trying to pursue other partnerships since. But I don't really think any of it really took off, though that is, again, still such a tiny portion of what actually is. Then you have, you know, the real competitors here, YouTube, Spotify, and Patreon. They don't allow any 18 plus content. And I don't see a world where OF is actually able to compete with any of these platforms in the safer work space because, you know, the stigma that comes with the name. It's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just can't see most creators being very
Fansly definitely leaned into the harder side of the 18 plus content. I think when people say Fansly, they immediately think of, oh, well, she's posting her butthole online. I think, yeah, OF's legacy is cemented for sure. Because OF, back in the day, when I heard about it, I was like, oh, OnlyFans, I get it. Because it's only for fans. You're subscribing so that you get exclusive content. And then the hoes were like, damn, all right, you say less.
very inclined to be like, hey guys, follow my unless they're paid like a massive bag. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. But that problem will be something the new owner will have to inherit. And another step that they might need to do is acquire a banking license, because even if they acquire OF, what happens if the payment processors shut them off? That would be really bad. So
They
a potential
won't.
solution for that would be if the platform could become its own financial institution. I mean, in theory, it could. That would definitely be a massive uphill battle for them though. But that would at least help them reduce the 5 to 10% fee burden. Currently, the valuation on the table is $3.5 billion, with Architect taking 60% of the equity in the deal. So in just a few years, this has essentially lost $4.5 billion in valuation because no one wants to buy it. And the Wall Street Journal had originally reported a total deal value, including debt, at $5.5 billion, compared to an earlier $8 billion valuation just 1 year before, with slower growth and tougher sale process dragging the number down. And this number was apparently dragged down due to slower growth and just a tough sales process.
I'm gonna say it. I think that these fucking scumfucks at MasterCard and PayPal, they shouldn't be able to know what you're spending your fucking money on. I think it's like, honestly, an invasion of privacy. At least with Amazon, it's like, oh, well, I'm buying things from Amazon, so they should know what I'm buying stuff. And Amazon, I think, is like one of the worst companies ever because we're actually just getting taken over by corpos. I think it's going to be a massive, huge fucking thing in 10 years, or maybe even less than that. But my point is that I don't think that PayPal and MasterCard and Visa and American Express, they shouldn't have that type of control over a person. Like, if you're doing something like really bad, like, I don't know, you're buying a bunch of knives and you're not a restaurant owner, you shouldn't even get banned for that. You should have your account investigated. Like, I don't know, there's like flags of suspicion. It shouldn't be like, oh, well, you're purchasing something we don't like, so we're gonna revoke and ban your card. I think that's wrong. I think that's fucked up.
But Sagan's $500 million fund wasn't nearly large enough to cover a deal of this size.
And they're already taking a cut. Every time you buy something, they're getting a bite out of the transaction, even though they're doing nothing but providing the payment processing. It's not like the person who's selling the product or you, the person who's giving the money for the product. They're doing nothing, essentially, in my fucking opinion.
On its own. So he spent months going door to door trying to assemble the capital. And the family offices turned out to be the most receptive audience, largely because they don't really face the same restrictions that prevent more of the, mainstream funds from joining. And the deal was supposed to close by the end of March of this year. But then Leonid passed away. And everything just got way more complicated. Obviously, I don't want to sound disrespectful here, but terrible time. Just when everything seemed to align, he passed away. And this happened on March 20th, 2026 in Florida. And the platform made an announcement with a brief statement saying that he had passed away peacefully after a long battle with cancer. But his family asked for privacy and no details were shared. But what came out in the following days were how few people actually knew about how serious his condition was. And sources told the media that Leonid himself had driven the urgency behind the sale because of his health. Because the guy was apparently trying to get a deal closed specifically because he was concerned about leaving his family in a complicated situation without clear ownership. And as a part of that, in 2024, he transferred his stake of the company into a private trust, with his family being the expected beneficiaries. So obviously, if the deal with Architect Capital was already messy, it just got so much worse. Because the firm was still
huge companies like that, when the CEO passes, such a fucking big deal.
In the process of raising the equity it needed when Leonid passed.
Over it like
so
crazy.
It seems like the money simply just wasn't fully there. And suddenly now, investors who've been on the fence were dealing with a whole new layer of issues. Now you have estate laws, a different person now effectively in control of the asset, and deal terms that would now have to be renegotiated with a trust rather than the original seller. So the timeline that was already extended was pushed back once again. And as of this video, the deal remains open, and the future of right now is genuine uncertain, which is why it seems like the empire is collapsing. And the company has a current CEO whose name is
the legality could go so far that the website might get shut down. And then honestly, I think Fansly will just take its place. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of scary because it's like, it'll just take its place. It's not gonna die, chat. Just because you can't find OnlyFans anymore, they're just gonna run somewhere else.
Kelly Blair, who has been running the day-to-day operations, but what's clear is there's a lot of money at stake, a lot of different interests, and a company that, despite everything working against it, keeps printing cash at a rate that makes it very hard to ignore. So, I mean, it's safe to say whatever happens next will probably not be any more bizarre than the story of this company. I mean, the company's story is how a $10,000 loan from a dad with way too much patience suddenly turned into a $7 billion a year empire ran by some secret Ukrainian billionaire no one has ever heard of. I mean, come on, this is such a crazy story.
It's so common for people that are in the adult entertainment business to not have any ties to like anything. It's very common.
And I feel like this is just a situation that no one's been talking about, because every time I hear OF in the news, it's about one of their stars making like $1 bazillion a year. So I just wanted to come here and talk about it for a bit. So hey, if you're new here, my name's Atozy, or A to Z, and we talk about the laughably stupid stuff and the bizarre things that happen here on the internet. So if you're new here, feel free to subscribe, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace. That was sick. That was wicked. Ooh. Good video, good video. Go check it out. Go check out A to Z. I don't know. Even if it collapses, it's just gonna take, like, again, it's like a Hydra. You cut off its head, another will take its place. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it just honestly just reminded me how much I hate like services like PayPal and like just cards in general. Even if it's like a debit card, it's not even a credit card where they suck you in through the idea of you loaning out money or them loaning you out money and you spending it. That's how they get their money. Like, you swipe your card every time you buy something anywhere, Amazon, Starbucks, McDonald's, you're buying yourself a big arch, they get a little cut, and it's like, they don't really fucking do anything. I don't know, I kind of miss when, like, cash was, like, around a lot. I kind of miss it.
Fire, 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 fire.